you gonna give your best and worst, or is this just my best and
This
worst?
was your best. This was my, yeah, your best and worst. But
Okay.
yeah, mine's really similar. So I asked Courtney, and she talked about relationships, like build relationships and or destroy relationships. And you kind of framed it in terms of vulnerability and non-vulnerability. And the way I frame it is in terms of selflessness and selfishness, where if you walk into your ward with, what am I going to get out of this? You're going to destroy the ward. If you walk in with, how can I help somebody else? Then you're going to strengthen the ward.
Yeah, man. So in DNC 84 this week, the I was I was blown away with that scripture. I might not be able to find it, but it's basically talking about how there's everyone, should be looking out for the interests of their neighbor. And that was really interesting to me because you hear a lot of different things in this vein, like self-help. In the self-help world, sometimes you hear like, oh, you got to take care of yourself first. And then you read scriptures about, like that, like everyone has the interest of their neighbor. And you're like, okay, is there a balance? And like anything, I think there's a balance in all things. But I think you're dead right. Like when you walk in to any situation and the question is, what can I get out of this? I think it's kind of a soul sucking question, you know. But when you actually have the interest of your neighbor, I think it's a totally different experience. And I wish I had that more. I feel like I don't have it. Honestly, I don't feel like I have that thought very often where I'm like, how can I enrich their life? Like, what can I put in? What can I create in this situation to help out? So, anyway, I like your framing. I think it's great.
Yeah, I want to do an entire episode on just that concept because it's it's really hard to there's this balance when you go to serving where you say I want to help someone versus I don't want to take care of myself, which I think is a really interesting balance. Not a lot of people are going to deal with this, but like bishops will run into this situation where they're like, it's my job to help everyone. And then pretty soon they're running their own life into the ground. And so
Yeah.
there's like this balance that you got to try and figure out. And I think talking about that is more helpful than talking about like selfishness versus selflessness, because most people aren't selfish. Most people aren't like, what can I take from you? What can I get from you? Most people aren't thinking about it that way, but they have a harder
Yeah.
time trying to balance their own needs versus the needs of others. So, for example, in my own life, the way I struggle with it is if I get a phone call and someone says, hey, I need help moving or whatever, I don't actually think about whether or not I want to do the thing they're asking me to do. I think about whether or not I'm available. And if I'm available, I just do it. And I don't really think about
Mhm.
whether or not I actually want to do it. For some reason in my head, that the calculation just doesn't work. And it's confusing to me when I meet other people that do think about that. For example, I'll call somebody and I'll say, hey, I need help. Are you available? And they'll say, no, 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 I'm not available. I'm like, okay. And then the next day they'll be like, hey, what was up? And I'm like, yeah, I needed help with the thing, but I got it. And he's like, oh, you didn't tell me it was that thing. And I was like, well, you told me you weren't available. And they're like, yeah, but if I would have known it was that, then I would have come help you. And I was like, how does that work? In my mind, I can't process that. Like it doesn't work that way for me. And so when people will do that to me where they're like, no, I was available, I just didn't want to, of like, oh, I've never factored in whether or not I want to do something. And so I kind of struggle with it in that way. And if you take it to the extreme, if you're constantly making yourself available to other people's needs, then you have no choice but to neglect some of your own needs. And so it
Yes.
becomes
And
difficult.
and and I'm sure you draw boundaries on what does it mean that you're available. Like if you've literally got nothing to do right now, but you're just crashing emotionally or
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
then maybe that means I'm not available, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. There's
Yeah.
physically available, there's emotionally available, And lately I've learned how to draw lines better for my availability according to their self-sufficiency. So even if I am available,
Mm,
I'll think to myself, is it actually helping them to go do this thing? And if it's not, then I'll be like, I'm not available. And it's not because I'm not available, it's because if I do this, I'm going to hurt you. So I'm not available to hurting you or enabling you or whatever I think the thing is. I want you to do the thing on your own. Uh,
yeah.
so for example, I need help preparing this lesson. And I would help somebody prepare like 4 or 5 lessons. And then after that, I'd be like, okay, I'm now enabling them. I'm just preparing the lesson for them. So I'd be like, I'm not available. Even though I have all the time in the world, I'm not going to prepare this lesson with you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's pretty nuanced stuff, to like in the moment try to wrestle with that.
Well, yeah, it takes practice. Obviously, it's you're not going to get it right the first time.
Yes.
But yeah, I think going back to the selfish, well, sorry, the selflessness and enabling and service and all that. Um, I think most people are really in the middle where they're just constantly trying to figure out if they're available. Do I want to go? Does this person need it? I'm too tired. I have other things I'd rather do. And they kind of fall into this habit of just not putting much effort into it. Instead of like actually thinking about all of the different parameters and whether or not something's supposed to work out, following the spirit, they just kind of like, it's just easier to do something else. And they fall into what's easy, like, watching a show rather than doing something helpful. And I think that's something that's helped me is just not developing habits of just doing the easy stuff, but doing hard things that are helpful to people.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right on the nose with that. I mean, because this, I have just been doing this in the last few months where I was what you're describing. So when you say you start getting lazy in thought a little bit, and then you're like, it's just easier. Like, even, my wife would be like, hey, should we go do this? Nothing's planned, right? Nothing's planned. Should we go do this? And I'm like, I don't know. Should we? I don't know. And anyway, like a few months ago, I was like, I am just going to say yes. Like, if I'm not doing anything, I got to stop thinking and just be like, I'm just going to do this thing. Cause obviously, with kids, we've got kids, they're asking constantly to do things, to try new things, to experiment. And I got so lazy in saying no for a long time. And so anyway, I think you're right on the nose with that. It's a long way of
Yeah.
saying that, but
Yeah, with kids, it's a whole different, it's like 10x harder with kids. I don't, so yeah, we should do a whole nother thing on that because, oh man, it drives me nuts. Because with
yeah,
we're around the kids all the time, and Courtney will come to me every once in a while and say like, I've noticed that you're just kind of in no mode, like you've been saying no a lot, and I'll be like, dang it, you're right. Like I don't even have a good reason for saying no. My main reason for saying no is that I'm irritated that they're saying no. But as soon as I say yes and we get engaged in some little project, I'm like, oh man, this feels so much better.
yeah,
What?
yes,
Why did I think no was going to make me feel better?
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
That's funny. I relate to that so much. Yeah. So shorter discussions,